Hi, I'm Leanna Dixon and I'm the Assistant Entomologist on the Cheniptera project at World Museum in Liverpool. I'm going to tell you a bit about my career journey and some of the different projects that I've worked on. My route into entomology wasn't straightforward. I've worked on various different projects for a few different organisations, but slowly becoming more and more specialised and focused on the biological recording aspect of entomology. I've always had an interest in wildlife and the natural world, so after I was fascinated by a module in animal behaviour while studying A-level psychology, I decided to pursue a degree in the subject at Aberystwyth University. During my degree, I discovered that I was most interested in the modules on ecology and conservation, so I joined the Aberystwyth Conservation Volunteers. This mainly involved practical habitat management work at beautiful sites across mid-Wales. So I decided I wanted to pursue a career where I could make a real difference in the world. So I went on to do a master's in biodiversity and conservation at the University of Leeds. This involved studying a wide variety of different wildlife. I was still unsure about the exact direction I wanted to take my career in at this point, until I did a module on insect identification skills. We learned lots of different ways to survey for insects and how to pin, label and identify them. And I was well and truly bitten by the entomology bug. Looking down the microscopes at the insects in detail was one of the things that really did it for me, and I've really been hooked ever since then. I was doing a lot of reading about bees and their threats at the time, which led me to focus most of my assignments on them, including my research project, which looked at competition between honeybees and other pollinating insects. Working on the university farm, which had several honeybee hives that you can see in this photo, I did surveys at increasing distances from the hives and found that bumblebees and hoverflies will visit more flowers where honeybee numbers are lowest, suggesting that they're competing for food. Because there's so many honeybees in a hive, this means that they can take all the food away from the flowers before the other bees, like bumblebees, get a chance to even get their breakfast. So we really need to be careful where we put honeybee hives. Shortly after I finished my master's, I volunteered my time on various research projects in the ecology lab at the University of Leeds, before being offered a job as a field assistant on a research project called Sustainable Pollination Services for UK Crops, which was part of the Insect Pollinators Initiative. It was a joint project between the University of Leeds and Reading, and I carried out surveys for insects such as bees and hoverflies in oilseed rape and strawberry fields around Yorkshire. We also made special flight cages on the university farm to look at how much marmalade hoverflies, red mason bees, buff-tailed bumblebees, and honeybees contributed to the pollination of different crops. It was all very exciting, and I couldn't believe that I was paid to do something that I found so interesting. It didn't feel like work. This job gave me a great insight into the world of research, but the aspect of the job that I enjoyed the most was the biological recording. Going out and observing insects, finding out what species they were, and recording them. This led me to volunteer at my local environmental record centre, West Yorkshire Ecological Record. I did this one day a week whilst doing an admin job to pay bills. Local environmental record centres are not-for-profit organisations that collect and look after wildlife data for a certain geographical area. I inputted species data onto their system, which was taken mainly from reports written by ecologists of protected species such as bats and newts. I learnt more about biological recording and why it's important. What was seen? Where was it seen? When was it seen? And who saw it? If we don't know what species we have, it's very difficult for us to protect and conserve them. I was keen to get more insect conservation and surveying experience, so I applied for an internship at BugLife. To my delight, I was successful, and after 10 months as an intern, I then started working as a conservation officer. I worked on BugLife's Beelines project. Beelines are a network of insect pathways along which BugLife aim to restore and create wildflower-rich habitat in parks and gardens, as well as in the countryside. I carried out bee and butterfly surveys on sites where meadows were being created or restored. It's important to monitor the success to know whether these projects are actually having an impact on the number and diversity of species using the sites. I also worked with schools to improve their grounds for pollinators. I hosted and attended events to promote insect conservation and recording, and made resources to help people create habitat for insects. My passion for wildlife recording was growing, and this led me to work at Record, the local environmental record centre for Cheshire, based at Chester Zoo. My main job was to create species reports and look after data, but I was also able to indulge my love of entomology. For example, I carried out surveys on the Chester Zoo Nature Reserve as part of an ongoing monitoring project. I did bee, butterfly and hoverfly surveys. I also sorted specimens from a malaise trap on the site. A malaise trap is the contraption that you can see on the left of the photo here. It's a sort of tent which traps flying insects. I worked at World Museum to pin and identify specimens using the reference collections there. All this data is feeding into recommendations on how the zoo managed the site for insects. One of my favourite surveys that I did whilst at Record was a commissioned survey of the spring Caletes bee, Caletes canicularius, on a coastal dune site. It's quite a large bee and one of the first to emerge in spring. The female can be seen here at the top and the male at the bottom. It's quite a rare bee and mainly found in coastal areas where it nests in the dunes, but where it is found there's often hundreds or thousands of nests. It can be quite the spectacle if you stumble across them flying around in the dunes on a sunny day. Several males will often pounce on a single female as she comes out of her nest hole to try and mate with her, as you can see here. Part of the survey involved counting the nest entrance holes to estimate the population. On the left here you can see one of the nest holes in the sand, and I estimated the numbers by counting them in the quadrat that you can see on the right. I plotted the number of nest burrows on a map. Here you can see that the bees appear to be doing very well, as the number of nests had increased a lot since 2011. I also did a survey report which included information on how the ranger should look after the site in a way that won't affect the bees. My passion for outreach was growing at Record. I developed their newsletter, social media, and attended various community events to promote wildlife recording. I developed the Community Nature Hub project and gained funding. It aimed to develop wildlife recording skills to support nature conservation in Cheshire. We ran wildlife ID events, field days, and created a hub for local recorders. In early 2019, I co-founded the Cheshire Bee Group. I was really keen to get more people who were interested in bees together to learn about identification and to also increase the number of bee records in the region. This map here shows all the bee records that the Record Centre hold. As you can see, there's still a lot of gaps. This doesn't necessarily mean that there's no bees there, just that no one has recorded them. We launched the group with an event looking at how to ID spring bees, and we went out to several sites in 2019. We had a lot of interest, particularly from female recorders, which was great, as female entomologists in the region are fairly rare. We even found a new species for Cheshire, the blood bee Sphagoides pharynginatus. We had a lot of plans for 2020, and then COVID put a spanner in the works. We did manage to do a few online events, including this one, identifying common garden bees, and a few BID help sessions over Zoom. We also did a joint recording day with the Tiniptera project and found the gold-fringed mason bee, Osmia orolenta, at Red Rocks. It's only been found a few times in Cheshire before, and interestingly, it builds its nests in empty snail shells. We've got plans for the bee group in 2022, so keep an eye out if you're interested in bees and live in Cheshire. When the opportunity came up at World Museum to work on the Tiniptera project, I jumped at the chance. It's a really exciting project to work on, and it was an excellent opportunity for me to progress my career in entomology. It combined my passion for invertebrate recording, conservation, and museum collections, as well as outreach. So the job was a perfect fit, really. You might be wondering what the Tiniptera project is. So here is a video that I made to help explain what the project is all about. So what do I actually do? The Tiniptera assistant entomologist is a varied and dynamic role. One day I might be running identification workshops here in our entomology lab at the museum, and the next I'm out in the field doing surveys or scoping out a site for one of our recording day events and encountering fantastic beasts such as this northern June tiger beetle. On other days I might be hosting a webinar, creating content for social media, or editing videos for the YouTube channel that I manage, or pinning and identifying insects under the microscope in the museum and pulling together invertebrate data. I'm also able to develop my growing specialism in bees, wasps and hoverflies by going out and doing fieldwork and providing habitat management advice. This is one of Cheshire Wildlife Trust sites that I've surveyed recently. It had some fantastic meadows that were teeming with an array of wonderful insects. Here's just a few of them that I spotted, and it doesn't even include the bees. And here's another site that I surveyed recently, Port Sunlight River Park. My job also involves promoting and working with the World Museum entomology collections. We have over 750,000 invertebrate specimens, most of which are British. The collections are important for research, for example, to see how insect populations are changing over time. Our insect collections are used a lot for identification and education. When you're trying to tell what an insect is, sometimes a photo is just not enough. To tell the difference between some species, you might need to look at tiny features which you'll only be able to see under the microscope. And sometimes those features are on the inside, so it isn't possible to identify the insect without killing it. Identification is also a lot easier if you're able to compare your specimen to those in the collections. I feel privileged to be able to do this job. I get paid to do something I'm passionate about, and I get to meet entomologists from all over the UK, visit a diverse array of sites on our field days, and share my love for insects with others. The project has become a hub for entomology in the northwest of England, and it's so exciting to be part of it.